this self-realization, okay, we can build this. We can build this with people, and we can turn it into like a people-powered network. So there was this like a very important moment, and then every piece basically came together, and we fully focused and started building this idea.
Well, welcome to Chorus One Podcast, Season 2, Episode 6. Today we have a very cool episode with Kerem and Deniz, who are here representing Soarchain. Kerem is the founder and CEO, and Deniz is the founder and CTO of Soarchain, which is a Cosmos L1 project focused on DePIN. It's a DePIN network focused on car mobility. But yeah, I'll let you guys introduce yourselves, and thanks so much for joining again.
Oh, thank you so much. Thanks for hearing us, actually. Yeah, this is Kerem. I'm one of the two co-founders of Soarchain. So maybe I can start with a little bit personal background. I'm actually coming from AI and cognitive sciences, predominantly working on like different computer vision technologies. I had my PhD on that subject some time ago. After that, actually, I started like 2 companies in 2 different domains. First one was in software development, and we were doing like a bunch of different things for Fortune 500 companies. I ended up selling my company. Then I started a renewable energy business, which has long been my passion, and facilitated building several different cool things within the domain. And regarding back to crypto part, I've been actually in this space since, I guess, 2015. It's fair to say. And before Soarchain, I was also like lucky enough to invest in a bunch of different companies. And now fully focused on Soarchain, fully focused on creating this cool infrastructure to advance mobility. Yeah, Deniz, maybe you can also.
Yeah. Awesome. So thanks for having us, Luis. And I'm Deniz. I'm coming from an electrical and electronics engineering background. I've been in the automotive space for about 10 years now. Hardware development, software development. I've been working on autonomous vehicles for 7 years now. And that's where we actually realized that the current mobility ecosystem lacks a connectivity layer to connect all the vehicles together, vehicles to the cloud, vehicles to other people, and vehicles to the infrastructure. So we started building Soarchain as a DePIN, a layer 1 DePIN. And yeah.
Cool. Yeah, maybe to start would be great to hear your explanation on what is DePIN and how does Soarchain fit into this landscape for our new users and listeners.
Oh, that's a good one, actually. So DePIN, I think is one of the interesting areas of the crypto in general that we recently started seeing a lot. But it's basically decentralized physical infrastructure networks. So for me, it is actually using incentive structures that brings all the stakeholders into one medium and creates a physical network that's traditionally been perceived as not doable by other means. But regarding like the Soarchain part, what excites me most is the fact that actually drivers are setting up connectivity and data infrastructure, but they also benefit from it. Because our end goal is actually to boost this infrastructure, but make mobility experience better for people, actually. So it is not like, for us at least, I mean, this is how I see Soarchain is like uniquely positioned within this DePIN narrative or DePIN ecosystem. So for us, drivers actually create this like data and connectivity infrastructure. So basically they make their cars connected, they make their cars available, but the end goal here is actually create a better mobility experience. Because when you look at the mobility ecosystem in general, it is very fragmented, and to be honest, the absence of this ecosystem hinders innovation a lot. So there are like a bunch of different things that you can innovate. But yeah, the ecosystem is closed, right? It's not very easy for someone to come and build applications for cars. So this is exactly we enable, and we enable this by creating an incentive structures that puts users like drivers at the center stage and build the whole ecosystem around them. But by also getting like OEMs into the equation, getting like developers into the equation, getting like a whole bunch of different companies and stakeholders in the ecosystem into the equation, while putting the drivers at the center stage.
Yeah, I think that's super clear. And maybe just one thing to add on the word DePIN, the P, which stands for physical. I think in this case, it's a specialized hardware that you plug into the car. In Soarchain, it's called the Motus, I believe. And I think that the physical side of the network, which would be great to hear the story of how it came about. Has it evolved over time, and how do you envision the network to go live? Let's say.
I'll start briefly, and then I'll go to Deniz, because if you leave me, I talk so much. So which I don't want to do it. I want Deniz to talk as well on this one. But this is an interesting question, because I mean, both Deniz and myself, we're predominantly coming from like a B2B backgrounds. I mean, he was working on building autonomous vehicles. I was building like different software applications for mainly large corporations. But both of us have been like in crypto for considerably long time. Even Deniz is before me. So I think it's been. You're right, Deniz. I think it's been like since 2013, right?
Yeah. I was trading Bitcoin back in 2013. Yeah.
But regarding like
start.
Yeah. But regarding like the evolution of the idea, I mean, when you look at like evolution of any group of people actually working together towards a goal, is mostly about how they collectively perceive the world and how they see the changing dynamics within their industries. So obviously, once we started the company, I mean, we were talking with Deniz about like, okay, how we can advance mobility, right? So this was our priority, because we know that the vehicles are changing, mobility ecosystem is changing. By the way, we're in a transitional period when you look at the mobility industry in general. I mean, cars are like turning into more like software-defined things, and the whole environment is changing. And obviously, once we started thinking about different ideas, we were thinking about, okay, there's this like a need for connectivity infrastructure. Okay, the data is valuable, but users can't benefit from it, and we cannot build applications because the ecosystem is locked. And at some point, we understand that, okay, this is exactly a problem definition that something decentralized can solve. Like something which is not tied companies. So it's not like, okay, we build a solution and we sell it to OEM. So no, it's not going to work. So we understand that right away. But always this also go hand in hand with like how we perceive the world, right? I mean, okay, we saw that actually we can create such a beautiful incentive structure that will solve these problems, and then we can actually create a technology to solve basically the verification problem of the physical data and make it in a scalable and privacy preserving way. And this will unlock like a huge potential for anyone who wants to build for mobility, right? So, and when you look at it right now, I think we're in a great period, both from like the crypto perspective and from the mobility perspective, especially with all these advancements. But there was always like this self-realization, okay, we can build this. We can build this with people, and we can turn it into like a people-powered network. So there was this like a very important moment, and then every piece basically came together, and we fully focused and started building this idea. But that was my perspective. Maybe Deniz, you can also add something from your perspective.
Yeah, I would also start from the B2B side, and having been done so much work in the automotive space, we've come to realize that this industry is a very slow moving industry. It is mostly due to maybe like the companies being too large to implement new things. And when you think about a car, it is mostly like a mechanical thing. So all of these car companies, they optimize everything about the mechanical stuff plus the manufacturing of it. But they also need to be aligned with this software-defined vehicles concept. But when you look at it, only a few companies, maybe even one company, is aligned for that goal, which is Tesla, obviously. And basically, they're doing what they can through being connected, making computational resources on the car available for different purposes. So they're, in a sense, a software development company, or like a hardware development company rather than like a car company. And but on the other hand, of course, all of these companies are realizing this and they want to become like them. But how are they going to? So this was the first blocker that we saw. Like, we can unlock so many applications, so many different use cases with the implementation of a fairly simple technology, which we have been developing. But there are many blockers. When you look at the B2B side of things, they are hesitant to embrace a new technology. It takes 5 years, 10 years. And but when you look at the people, they are ready, actually. People are ready to deploy this technology on their cars and basically have access to a whole new range of applications. But they either don't know about the technology, or they just need some kind of incentive structure, which Kerem referred to. I mean, when you look at the like blockchains, or like, one of the most powerful aspect of like crypto economic protocol is actually the capacity of this protocol to design incentive systems that actually aligns with the goal of the whole system. It's of course, like, it starts from Bitcoin, right? It has a specific purpose to become like peer-to-peer electronic cash. Or when you look at the Ethereum, it could allow anyone to write smart contracts and dApps where they can actually create their own rules and ownership structure. And the list goes on. When we look at Cosmos, we have the like network connecting these many different independent blockchains and kind of become a hub and make all these blockchains interoperable. And all these success kind of led to this DePIN narrative, where now you would actually have people and capital formation that we've seen successfully happen on all these platforms, now extending to the physical world. And it is actually like a very, very good way of incentivizing people, or like crowdsource the swift deployment of large-scale infrastructure networks. If you were like a single company trying to deploy these, so this is like the exact problem that I'm talking about. Like, I'm a car company, I want to deploy this network. I need to spend millions and millions of dollars to cover for all my cars, put this on all of my cars. So I'm waiting for others to do it. And it kind of becomes like a vicious cycle where everyone waits for each other and nothing gets done. But as a person, you can just buy an fairly low-cost device, put it into your vehicle, and start participating in the network. Plus, having this network in a completely decentralized and protocol-defined way helps you get into the network, because you know that your privacy will be preserved. You know that you will have full control over your data. You get incentivized for participating. Plus, in the end, you would actually be benefiting from using the network through the applications in the ecosystem.
Yeah, I think you guys go over very, very interesting points on centralized versus decentralized, and I think that's one of the key core values of DePIN networks, is that it gives you access to instant data, leveraging your community, and that's something that a big car manufacturer could never do. And as you said, Deniz, it would be too costly, right? So yeah, I would like maybe to delve a bit deeper on the differences between centralized versus decentralized, but not only the differences. I think a question that I always get asked when talking about Soarchain is, oh yeah, but what would a Tesla do if Soarchain gets too big? And I think this is a very interesting topic for people to understand how a Tesla, for example, could collaborate in the future with a Soarchain of the world. And yeah, would love to hear your thoughts. You also gave the announcement recently that you will, I think, airdrop to Tesla owners, which is also very cool. So yeah, would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So I mean, it is a fair question, I think, and it also addresses one of the problems existing in the industry. Not maybe with Tesla, but with many of the other companies.
Yeah.
They really they don't like it maybe, but their way of working is very closed. Like, they develop a technology in a closed environment. They develop it with their own stakeholders. And at the end, only they are able to utilize the technology if they can. And no two companies can actually collaborate on developing a single technology and using it and becoming interoperable. So interoperability is a very important aspect in this one. So it's kind of like, maybe Teslas will be able to speak to each other in the future, but will they be able to speak to other cars? Will they be able to speak to infrastructure? So instead of developing a closed protocol or like a custom protocol only for a single brand, it would become the hub that all the vehicles would settle many different things, including like transactions, data exchange, and even deploying applications for another brand. So when we look at the landscape, I mean, there is a competition between all the players, but it's not a zero-sum game. So if two companies collaborate, they both earn more. They both make their users happier. So they need to collaborate, but they don't have a way to do so because there's no open protocol. The existing protocols are not allowing them to interoperate. So that's why I think Soarchain would never be like a competition, but rather it would be a common protocol that all the brands would use. But yeah, maybe Kerem, you would also.
And one thing that I can add, always, it's not a zero-sum game. I think that's the best definition. So all the car brands need to be interacting with each other from like a data and connectivity point of view, and we need this like I like using this term, global operating system. And when you look at it from like the global operating system perspective for mobility, I mean, we shouldn't. I think the mobile phone model is not going to work. It's not going to be like a closed app stores, closed operating systems, but it's going to be a one that's going to be not like bound to one company or one entity, but a layer which all these car companies can benefit from it. So this is what we're trying to achieve. So that's why I like the wording of like operating system. I know it's kind of like a little bit like a stretch of all the definitions, but when I see Soarchain, I see it that way. I mean, as a developer, you can build the application for every car brand. As an OEM, you can connect your car with all the existing car brands on the market. If you're a tier one, let's say if you're building some sensors for different brands, you can instantaneously collect data and make your products way better because you have access to direct feedback. So that's why I'm saying always about this like stakeholders, and it's about like participant and stakeholder alignment. And in that respect, no, it's not. It's never going to be like a zero-sum game. I mean, basically, everyone needs this layer in the ecosystem, and we build it.
Yeah, makes sense. So essentially, it's the future is still a world where car manufacturers compete in producing the best car, and then maybe some brands use one operating system, which could be a DePIN network like Soarchain. Others use another, but the key thing here is having cars interoperate between each other and having developers, giving developers the access to new applications. And yeah, I think that's very cool. I think maybe before we talk about some use cases about this, I think it would be maybe from Deniz useful to hear a brief explanation on how does the Motus hardware work for our user.
Yeah. So it it is a plug and play hardware. It connects to your car's standard OBD2 port, which is standardized in almost all the cars manufactured after like 2005. It even goes way back in the US, etc. And it is basically, it can be thought of as a hardware wallet with cryptographic functionalities inside. Plus, it is able to communicate with the vehicle through the OBD2 port. Plus, communicate that data with the blockchain itself. And it has multiple functions. The first function is, of course, to participate in the network by proving that the vehicle is in fact available for providing data and other resources. So this is like the base layer where the nodes, these vehicle nodes, are required to actually be as connected as possible. They provide like a subset of the data that's coming from the car, and they actually submit a proof of it, and this proof gets verified on the chain. And and on the other side, by looking at this proof, you can actually now say that, okay, I want different data points from your vehicle. Of course, as the vehicle owner, if you opt in to give, you kind of get into another way of earning rewards directly for the data that you provide. Aside from that, even if you're not like willing to give your data, or maybe you're hesitant on giving some data points, once you get the Motus device, you basically get direct access to all the dApps within the ecosystem, and you can actually utilize those dApps through the already existing like Soarchain protocol that has native integration with the device itself.
Awesome. Yeah, super clear. So now maybe would be great to talk some use cases, and maybe a bit before that. I think it's also interesting to understand now that we've mentioned car manufacturers, how would a car manufacturer leverage Soarchain to benefit their clients? Would they have a team of developers that develop some applications that are maybe specialized for Mercedes drivers, or how does it look like?
There are different aspects, and there are different ways. First one is exactly what you said, and we already have OEMs that are doing that. So they have like separate teams working on different use cases on Soarchain, because eventually, like from the application point of view, first of all, we call OEMs as developers as well. So in our ecosystem, everyone is a developer. You might be a developer, Suzuki might be a developer, and for them, yeah, I mean, OEMs are also like looking for the application game here. So it is a little bit speculative to say, but most of the OEMs actually are not happy just by selling cars. They want to build applications because they want recurring revenue eventually, right? And that's why in some of our like OEM partners, they have like a teams who are working on like building applications, building use cases on Soarchain. So that's one way. The other way is actually directly from like the data point of view, and perfectionating their physical products. So with Soarchain, they can actually access to real-time data, and they can utilize it in real time, so they can have like a better feedback loops for the devices, which are car in this case, and basically decrease their like time to market durations, because the feedback loop is actually working a lot smoother here. So these two ways, and this is also, by the way, useful for tier ones. So for people who doesn't know about like the classifications in the manufacturing and car industry in general, there are like OEMs and there are like suppliers. There are like tier ones, tier twos, and tier ones especially. Like let's think about a company who does some kind of a sensors to a car. Let's say Bosch. Bosch is like one of the biggest tier ones, and Furthermore from Germany is another like a big player. So these companies actually, they don't have like an access to the data, like a quick access to the data. So and basically making them make the data accessible to them also decreases their like time to market durations and let them perfectionate their products easily. So this is one aspect. The other one is application aspect, and they benefit from both of these points.
Got it. Yeah, I think that's super clear. So now the question is, what's the use case that excites you the most, and why, and how feasible do you see it for an application to maybe become very successful?
Deniz, I'll give it to you first.
Yeah, but I'm so maximalist on like autonomous driving. It might be too much of a far reach at the moment. But of course, I mean, even when we started, like the idea was to implement a connectivity layer so that these vehicles could become safer, more intelligent, more autonomous. So ultimately, that's the thing what excites me the most. But to tie it, like as a concrete example, we will have like multiple autonomy algorithms, multiple ADAS algorithms, multiple sensors, and multiple like stacks running on these cars. And we would, like, both from the security perspective and safety perspective, we would have to ensure that these algorithms are running in a correct way. The actual algorithm is running on that car. And most importantly, they are communicating with each other, because you can actually have a single autonomous vehicle. But when you put 100 of these, not even 100, like 5 of these autonomous vehicles in the same area, they just don't know what to do. This was like one of the funny news from maybe 3-4 months ago, where these cruise cars were actually at a junction and they didn't know what to do because they are not like really directly communicating with each other, and they weren't really programmed to do so. So that part is the thing that excites me the most. But in terms of like maybe day one applications, I'd call them, democratizing many of the already existing but broken systems will be one of like that excites me the most. One of them is like ride hailing, ride sharing. This could be implemented in many ways, of course. Like it could be like an Uber competitor, or it could even be like car sharing, where you actually drive your car and you would get someone in your car. Plus anything that would be related to logistics of getting somewhere from one point to the other point, such as like DoorDash, etc. These will also be, I think, revolutionized with Soarchain. But yeah, we have, I mean, Kerem, please feel free to.
Yeah, all of them actually makes a lot of sense. I mean, obviously there are the basic ones that some of our partners are actually working on it. Like insurance is one of the ones that always comes up to mind. But personally, I'm also like very much interested in like car payments, and especially like car to infrastructure payments, which is going to be like streamlining the whole process. I think car payments are still like very much underutilized in this world, and there are like a lot of potentials for it. And yeah, I mean, a whole bunch of like autonomous vehicles is obviously like
what's a car payment? Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Basically, your car paying for, let's say, charging fees or different things, right? And basically, your car pays everything automatically by itself. I mean, it seems like a very basic thing, but I think still like it is very underutilized area, which I believe Soarchain might be like a interesting use case to do it. But as Deniz explained, always autonomous vehicle and autonomous things are actually considered as like an AI applications. I'm also like very much interested in this one, because one of the unique things of our architecture is obviously we solve most of the verification problems in the physical life data. And when you look at it, that's exactly the AI algorithms need right now, right? I mean, they're like sucking all the data from internet, but still most of these like models, they don't have like a direct access to physical data. And I think from like that perspective, Soarchain is going to be a valuable place for most of the AI companies. And because there's the computational aspect, there's the data aspect, and we provide like the data aspect in a great way. But yeah, day one applications, I think insurance is obviously an area because it is still like very much closed. I mean, there's not much of a room for insurance startups to come and execute in these environments, but we enable that. And payments also is little.
Okay, so I see. Like I'm also, whenever I think of use cases, I always think about insurance, and I think it makes sense having. If you have a lot of data on how the driver is, you can of course adjust the insurance terms and so on. But you mentioned it's a closed market, so the way you could possibly see it grow and maybe increase its visibility is by having new insurance companies that eventually perform better because they have better access to real-time data provided by Motus. And
I think this is pretty much true for all industries in this ecosystem, and that's one of the like a tipping point of all the problems. I mean, it's so close, it's so difficult to enter. And when I talk to people, I mean, look, this is like, think about like a 20-year-old developer, okay? So there are a lot of things that if you're a 20-year-old developer, you can do in life, right? You can work on like space tech, you can work on biotech, you can work on crypto, you can work on a bunch of different places. But traditionally, building an application for cars is not one of them. Or building creating an insurance company for cars is not one of them. And there are like various different examples of this in the mobility ecosystem. So, and that's what we want to enable. And from that perspective, insurance, like even like maintenance applications. I mean, you can build like a lot cooler maintenance application. Even like autonomous vehicles. I mean, you can test all these things, and basically we make the whole ecosystem accessible to anyone who wants to innovate. And insurance obviously is one of them.
Yeah, got it. I think super exciting topic on use cases, and I'm sure we'll start to see novel use cases that we haven't even imagined soon. But yeah, I think another interesting topic to discuss could be a bit more of a deep dive on the architecture, understanding why is Soarchain designed like it is, and why is it special. I think you guys have some novel implementations, like for example the runner network. You have a governance architecture that is very interesting, and a few others. So yeah, it would be great to hear an overview on potentially why did you make this design choices.
Yep, definitely. So first of all, as we had been working with this mobility data, we knew that we would be dealing with highly mobile nodes and nodes that generate extreme amounts of data. So this is a fairly new thing to bring to the blockchain space, let alone itself is a whole different issue, even if you're handling stuff in a centralized way. So the first and foremost thing was for us to think was, how do we handle this data? We really there are multiple architectures, of course, but we actually the Soarchain itself should be, we said it should be an architecture that facilitates the data exchange, the value exchange between the data generators and the data consumers for various purposes. And for this, we've already gone through the incentive structure, but we would also need a layer that would actually ingest all the data while preserving the privacy of the user, still able to do some computation on the data, go over some consensus over this data and actually do this as nodes within the chain itself. So initially, it's a multi-layered architecture. We have the hardware on the first layer. So the hardware is connected to the vehicle, and it's collects data from the vehicle. And once that data comes to the hardware, there are multiple security measures. So it is like the first line of defense. And defense against whom? Defense against malformed data, game data, simulated data, irrelevant data, any malicious attack. You can name anything. So the idea is to get the data and check it for its integrity, authenticity, and plausibility. So initially, the hardware does a pre-processing where it runs various algorithms on it. Of course, the resources are constrained on the hardware, so you cannot run like deep learning algorithms and whatnot. But we can still check a lot of things on the hardware level. It has a secure element inside of it, which means that it can. It is very hard to tamper with the chip inside the device, and it stores all the private keys, the certificates, all the credentials inside of it. And we are so that once the data comes, this data is signed by the private keys of the device, which where we can say that, okay, this data is signed by a device that came out of one of the manufacturing facilities that are within the Soarchain ecosystem. And we're doing this through a certificate chain of trust kind of thing. But the beauty of this thing is normally you would have a root authority which is issuing certificates. But in our case, the root authority is the chain itself, and the issued certificates are basically tied to the governance. So that part is actually one of the innovative way of getting newer manufacturers to the ecosystem in a decentralized way. Right now, of course, as we speak, we are the only manufacturer, but the idea is to open source it and include many new manufacturers without actually depending on a centralized entity. The second part is the most important, but once all of these computations are done on the hardware, the data is sent to the runner network. So runners are light nodes from the perspective, like they are light nodes that receive the data from the runners. They receive the data from the devices, the Motus devices, create an aggregated proof out of these messages that they receive from the Motus, and basically provide this proof to the layer one to be verified. So from the layer one's perspective, the validators or the compute nodes there, they don't have to redo the computation, the heavy computation that the runners do. They only need to verify the proof that they've generated. And also within the runner architecture, we're utilizing a BFT-like pre-consensus mechanism to prevent censorship. So it is also censorship resilient in a way that it is state machine replicated, and these runners need to create the same proof and submit that same proof to the chain. Otherwise, they would be locked out of the system through various punishment methods, such as they also need to stake, by the way. They are not as powerful as validators in no way. They actually need to delegate a certain amount of tokens to one of the validators in the system to become a runner. So that's like the first entry barrier to make it a bit more costlier to attack through the runners. And the second thing is, of course, the consensus. And the third thing is the reputation or the score that they have, which keeps increasing as they act more and more honestly.
Got it.
And once the data comes, the runners actually send the proof to the network, and this proof within the custom module. So we're a Cosmos SDK chain. One of the reasons we've chosen Cosmos SDK is, of course, the way that it supports custom modules to be developed right embedded into the virtual machine logic of the chain. So it all works within the chain. It's not like a centralized sequencer type of thing or like a centralized Oracle type of thing, but it is rather more like a physical life data decentralized Oracle, but it is also sequencing the messages that it is receiving, and messages are actually very similar to TXs, but they're larger because they contain car data. So it's kind of the purpose of the runners are to make create proofs that in fact those data were made available. Plus, also one of the things like it could be thought of as a data availability solution, but it also checks the inside of the messages, whether they're authentic, integral, and plausible. So that's like the whole novel part where we're tackling the DePIN data verification problem.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. There's also, I think, I did an article on it in case anyone wants to read a bit more about it. But I find it very, very exciting, and would love to go deeper into the topic. But I think for the sake of time, I think let's maybe summarize there's the governance aspect, which provides decentralization also from the manufacturer side, which has been one of the key problems of DePIN projects in the past. So I think this is very cool. And then there's the runner network, which works a bit similarly to a decentralized sequencer, if I understand it correctly. And the idea, I think, it's also to have users in the future to have the light clients run from the mobile phone or from the app, which I think is also something that's very unique and exciting. But yeah, I think maybe I had one more question before we do some conclusions and so on, which is on DeFi. I think on DePIN networks, there's not much discussion on how do users connect to DeFi. What are how can you monetize, let's say, your driving, and you of course are connected, are an L1, you're connected to Cosmos and therefore IBC. So yeah, curious on your thoughts on that. How do you envision users using DeFi on Soarchain?
Kerem, would you like to?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think one of the primary reasons we go with Cosmos was obviously that, and to enable this also for like other chains. So we position ourselves as like an access point, so a bunch of different like DeFi applications or DeFi specific chains to access to the cars. So from the accessibility point of view, I think it's a both way. So we need DeFi, but most of the DeFi applications also need like real life use cases. And in the mobility context, we kind of see ourselves as like the gateway for them to come here. Let's say even for some even like insurance application or like some lending borrowing applications within the context of mobility can be easily tackled and tap into cars via our chain. So I see this relationship as like a mutual, and I believe that if we provide like a good gateway for all these like DeFi applications and chains, they will eventually come here, because physical life is the end game for crypto, right? It is like the best. It's like the area that everyone wants to get into, but in the crypto ecosystem, everything actually stays within its own borders. So we want to break that. We bring like cars and mobility into this equation. We believe that we are also going to be benefiting from it. And the other question is also, I think, very important. Like, how do you see like people actually earning something from out of this, right? As to say, like earning there from drivings. So this is something that I also wanted to mention at the beginning of our conversation. So we see Soarchain is not just something that you drive and monetize your data, but it's also like for you as a driver, a gateway to a bunch of different applications. And eventually I envision like if you go from like the same payments or insurance examples, let's say my data paying my insurance. If we can sustain that, then we are a sustainable thing, right? So basically, and I believe that this is one of the areas that most of the DePIN companies or like people in the DePIN, like people who are building in DePIN, sort of like fail to understand. And you need to bring utility directly to people who contribute to network, either via data or like via some physical space. By physical space, I mean you put some sensor into some place in your house or something. So you need to bring utility beyond tokens to people who buy your device. And this is like the exact like the thing that always keeps we always keep in our minds. And this is also true for like DeFi, right? I mean, if let's say there's this like an insurance application, if there is this like a payment application that you can use your crypto, and then if the access point is like the Soarchain, then you go and participate in the Soarchain regardless of like monetizing your data, because there are like so much possibilities that you can do within this ecosystem. So that's why all these like interactions with different chains, interactions with like different DeFi strategies, interactions with other developers, OEMs. I think at the end it comes to like what kind of value you create to drivers, and if you can create this value to people, then you're doing something good, right? And then you're a good company.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. I think super exciting, and definitely it does make sense. The users are, whenever they want to use a network for a long period of time, especially, they have to extract some value out of it. So yeah, I completely agree. And then there's also like crazy use cases that people could leverage Soarchain for, like let's say having people speculate on DYDX, on driver behavior, on certain countries or something like that. I would definitely like to short my friends on their driving behavior if I could.
Nice fun.
But yeah, I think very exciting. I think we're almost wrapping up. So maybe as a closing, would be great to hear a bit more on the roadmap of Soarchain, and if you can give us a bit of alpha on the airdrop, it would be also great.
No, so basically, so we announced actually most of the stuff on the airdrops on our Twitter page. So first of all, I'll invite everyone to follow us on Twitter. Obviously, regarding like the roadmap, sure. I think we're going to the mainnet in Q2 this year, so within a few months, and we're super excited about this. And in our roadmap, by the way, we have other like hardwares that's going to be supporting like 2-wheelers and even like different vehicles as well. So we're not going to be limited to cars. And we'll be diversifying our like hardwares for different purposes as well. And airdrops, yeah, we see obviously. So you mentioned about like the Tesla airdrop, which we value it a lot. So because we want to do the airdrop to people and chains in the community that we admire, but also we believe that there's like a lot of possible synergies. So that's why we focus on things like obviously Cosmos, Celestia, and Akash, which is also like another chain, which I think is like from like the mission perspective, we feel we're aligning a lot, and also like different car brands. So we use airdrop to basically build community, but also spread our mission and spread our perspective on different topics, like how we see data, how we see AI, how we see like the broader ecosystem of crypto. And yeah, and we're super excited for the mainnet. I'll ask everyone like to follow the updates. So we'll be announcing like a bunch of different like partnerships with different OEMs, different AI companies, different startups, and we're also super excited about them.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks so much. I think we're a bit over time, so perfect to phrase to wrap it up. And yeah, thanks so much, guys, for joining. Super excited about the imminent launch, and yeah, we'll definitely keep in touch and keep following Soarchain. And yeah, encourage everyone to follow Soarchain on Twitter. Stay online, and And thanks for joining again.
Oh, thank you so much. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.